This is Colin Dixon with nScreen Media, and I'm here at the Ericsson Media Summit with Simon Frost. Simon is head of TV marketing, right, for Ericsson.
That's right,
Tell me about the Media Summit. What's the Media Summit about?
We put the Media Summit on because in the emergence of the network society as we see it, it's creating this internet era of TV. So basically a huge period of disruption across the entire media value chain. So we have put on this summit, bringing together the content owners, broadcasters, programmers and the pay TV service providers and the advertisers all together, including some of the new disruptive players, to really discuss the hottest topics in the industry and understand how do we drive success towards 2020.
And so you had some very interesting data on the progress of the network society. You want to run some of those data points by us?
Yeah, sure. So by 2020 we predicted 50 billion connected devices overall, of which 15 billion of those are video enabled, which of course is the really important piece. The overall industry itself is in healthy growth, so up from revenues last year of $530 billion US dollars to $750 billion US dollars. So, and of course the interesting stuff behind that is how is there going to be a distribution shift in who's earning those revenues. So clearly the IP-based players are driving the fastest growth, but not necessarily the most significant aspects overall. And one other statistic that we discussed was we finally believe in most advanced markets that we'll see that balance point between consumption of live and linear content and time shift and on-demand content reaching a 50-50 balance point. So it'll be even by 2020.
So the trend we're seeing already of on-demand viewing, you think will get to 50% within 6 years?
Yes, in advanced markets, so Western Europe and North America, where we are, of course, right now.
And that will primarily, I think that will probably be led by online rather than DVR viewing, right?
Yeah, we've seen, well, from our consumer studies actually, which is a separate bit of reports that we've been doing, we see the consumers using, in-home DVRs less. But, I think I fully agree. The accelerative effect is IP. The accelerative effect is those on-demand and time shift services being offered from the cloud, being offered from the network, either by the broadcaster or by the pay TV service provider.
So a couple of the themes that we saw here at the show, I think one of the biggest themes I saw was data. Data, there was lots of discussions of data, right?
There was. We had a whole session dedicated to advertising and looking how the trends are going to shift there. And of course, data comes up so much there about how others are using those analytics to drive buying decisions. We had some discussions about is it going to be more programmatical than kind of upfront contracts, and I think largely the feeling in the room was yes, it is headed in that direction. But and of course, data perhaps being used in how content is created, how original programming is even created, looking at some of those consumer data, and of course. And otherwise also the online platform. So the emergence of many of these online platforms, one of the hottest aspects, of course, is it's giving them access to how long is the content consumed, by who, when, even linkages to their friends when they recommend it, which links then result in consumption as well. So there seems to be a lot of interest in exploiting and exploring what happens when you put content online.
It seems like those people with that data have a tremendous competitive advantage over others. And I'm wondering, could this be one of the reasons why CBS and HBO are doing what they're doing? What do you think?
Well, I think from an HBO perspective, the party line I think is that they're trying to look for additive customers that are on top of the ones that have already come through their primary aggregators. I don't think anybody yet knows what data itself is going to offer to anyone in terms of advertising or how you change the programming, because I think we're in those very early stages of that. But clearly, if you want to start exploring, you want to start innovating, you want to start understanding, you have to be in there. You have to be in that numbers game. So I think you do need to be accessing that type of data to start working out what are you going to do with it to give you an edge.
Yeah, it seems like it informs every part of the business, right? Making it more efficient for you to purchase content, develop content, and deliver it, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Another thing that came up was Ultra HD, and I was pleased to hear some of the comments, particularly about HDR, high dynamic range, right?
Yeah, it was a really interesting conversation actually. So, everyone's been talking about 4K ultra high def TV, but not so many people have been talking about the potential for the addition to 4K of high dynamic range, but even the potential to use a high dynamic range at 1080p type resolutions to create what is pretty much a similar type of experience, so claimed on the panels, to 4K. So is it a viable alternative to look at much more dynamic picture impact in terms of color, in terms of luminance, as a way of enhancing the experience at the sort of traditional HD type resolutions, perhaps with some more frame rate, than stretching the resolution all the way up to 4 times, up to Quad HD?
Certainly in the demos that I've seen, I've been able to see the difference between high dynamic range picture quality on much smaller displays. And you really do need that big display. As you have out there, you have a nice big monitor showing Ultra HD, and there indeed you can see the resolution difference. But that high dynamic range seems to be visible on all sizes.
It is, yep. We're showing we've got an Ultra HD display, and we're showing the whole aspects of how you enable that. But we're also showing us standard dynamic range and an ultra high high dynamic range demonstration as well. And it's just superb to see a screen of pretty good size showing you that extra luminance, that extra brightness, that extra color depth. It's such an impactful experience, and I think maybe the thing that has some similarity with 4K is that immersiveness, that sort of looking at nature through a window it draws you in. And I think it's anything, these sorts of things that provide these new visual hooks and these new experience hooks, I think they're the things that have the consumer value.
One of the things I didn't hear from anybody at the conference was a commitment at least on behalf of pay TV operators, that they were going to start rolling out UHD in their infrastructure, their broadcast infrastructure. There was obviously interest in delivering over the top, but still nothing on the broadcast infrastructure. Do you think that's going to happen?
I think, well, we firmly believe that if 4K is going to happen, and we do think it is going to happen, it's going to rely on high frame rate sports materials. I mean, I hate to use the word killer application, but live sports material is going to be the thing that drives the big screen sales, drives the screen refreshes. It did do for HD as well. So I think the value chain is waiting for the commitment from those that are further up towards the content origination in terms of sports. What we have seen, particularly from Netflix already, is taking film material, which is already in 4K resolution anyway, but only 24 frames a second, that film material, and putting that online so that you can basically have, as you say, an OTT delivery model for 4K. So I think we will probably see early moves in pay TV being in similar. So what was all universally agreed in the panel was the marketing impact of 4K, not necessarily the technological impact. They're causing them to scratch their heads. The marketing impact of 4K, if you want to give the CMO of your pay TV organization that quick win, it's going to be something similar, which is filmic material, delivered OTT, or even perhaps delivered in their existing platforms. But I think we'll have to wait a little longer before we get the real true 4K, which is high frame rate.
Yeah, remarkable thing is I think I've been seeing statistics that have been saying 50% of people in the US are interested in getting UHD, Ultra HD, but of course we know that most of those haven't even seen it. So the marketing uplift is definitely there, that's for sure, for these operators. So maybe that will goad them into moving a little faster. Simon, this has been great. Thanks for inviting me here to New York, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you very much, Colin.
This has been Colin Dixon with nScreen Media.